In C#, sometimes the smallest details have the biggest impact. Today, we're going to dive into just one of those, the choice between two little keywords, throw versus throw X. It's a subtle difference, for sure, but it can make or break your debugging efforts, and maybe even your next job interview.
Okay, so picture this. You're in a high-stakes technical interview, the pressure is on, and you get asked a question about exception handling. How you answer could seriously be the difference between getting that job offer and walking away empty-handed. Yeah, believing these two are the same thing, that's a huge red flag for interviewers. It's a really common mistake, but it's one that can cost you. By the time we're done here, you'll see exactly why, and you'll know how to completely avoid that pitfall.
So to really get why this matters, we first have to talk about a core concept in debugging, the stack trace. The best way to think of it is like the black box flight recorder for your code's errors. Basically, when something goes wrong, the stack trace leaves you a trail of breadcrumbs. It shows you every single method that was called, in order, leading right up to the spot where things blew up. It's the error's complete family history. All right, let's make this super concrete. Imagine your program kicks off in main. Main calls another method, let's call it method 2, and method 2 in turn calls method 1. And then, boom, inside method 1, something goes wrong and an exception gets created. This exact chain of events is what the stack trace is built to record. Okay, so now for the main event. Our error happened way down in method 1. But what happens when it's caught and then rethrown up in method 2? This is where our two keywords finally come into play, and you'll see their behavior is totally different. Here it is, the fundamental difference in a nutshell. When you just use throw, you're rethrowing the original exception, keeping all of its history. But if you use throw X, you're actually creating a brand new exception right at that spot, which completely erases the original story of where the error came from. So the best practice is incredibly simple. It's just one clean keyword throw. Now let's look at the powerful result this simple command gives us when the exception is finally caught back in main. And this is why it's the gold standard. The stack trace tells the whole story. It clearly shows the error started in method 1, passed through method 2, and was finally handled in main. We have the complete, unabridged history, which makes finding the real problem so much easier. Okay, now let's switch things up. Let's see what happens when we make that tiny but really critical change in method 2. Instead of just throw, we're going to use throw X. On the surface, it feels like it should do the same thing, but the consequences are massive. And yikes. There it is. The stack trace is completely reset. It now claims the error started in method 2. The true origin, method 1, has completely vanished from the record. You've just lost the single most important piece of debugging information, where the problem actually started. Look, this isn't just some academic detail. In the real world, this means hours, maybe even days, hunting for a bug in completely the wrong place. Your choice of keyword directly impacts your ability to fix bugs. One choice empowers you, and the other one actively misleads you. This table really just lays it all out, plain and simple. With throw, the stack trace is preserved, the original location is kept, debugging is easier. It is without a doubt the best practice. With throw X, you reset the trace, you lose the original location, and you make debugging way, way harder. Okay, but before we completely write off throw X, there is one very specific kind of advanced scenario where you might see something like it used correctly. It's not for simply rethrowing, but for what's called wrapping an exception. So the big question is, when is it actually okay to use throw X? And honestly, the short answer is almost never, at least not in that exact form. But the idea of throwing a new exception from a catch block, that does have a valid use. The only real reason you do this is when you are deliberately trying to add more context. For example, maybe you catch a very low-level database error, but you want to wrap it in a more meaningful, high-level data exception for the rest of your app to understand. And this is the right way to do it. See, we're not just saying throw X. We're creating a new exception, and this is the critical part, we are passing the original exception, X, as an inner exception. This lets you add new context without losing that original stack trace. You get the best of both worlds. All right, let's pull all of this together. We've gone through the how and the why. So now let's build that perfect, rock-solid answer that's going to impress any interviewer who asks. Okay, you're there. The moment of truth. The interviewer leans in and asks you this exact question. No sweat, right?
You look them right in the eye and you say, it's because throw preserves the original stack trace. That's what makes all your debugging and logging accurate and effective. Simple as that.
And if you want to boil it down to one killer line that's perfect for an interview, here it is. Throw rethrows the same exception with the original stack trace, while throw X resets the stack trace. It's concise, it's accurate, and it shows you know exactly what you're talking about.
And that really wraps it up. The whole throw versus throw X thing, it's a perfect example of how one tiny detail can show just how deep a developer's knowledge really goes. It kind of makes you wonder, what other seemingly simple coding mistakes out there have these massive consequences?